Haunt is a 2019 film that plays off on the Fright Fest craze that went on along those times, similar to Hellfest, Funhouse Massacre, Trick, and one that I reviewed, Bloodfest, which I very much enjoyed. Basically, revolving around like a haunted house kind of attraction setting in a sense. And this is produced by Eli Roth and written by the guys who wrote A Quiet Place, which I wasn't big on that film personally. It's one of those that I had no interest to begin with, and then I put it on, and it's exactly what I expected it to be, something that is just not for me. Well done and everything, but just not my taste. But this one, however, works very, very well. Mostly. Of course, it has certain things here and there that kind of I have some gripes with, but overall, as an experience, this is a very, very good Halloween film. Perfect for spooky season, and I had a really great time with it. The villains are awesome, the kills are great. Again, mostly, like 95% of them. And I like the characters. I didn't have a problem with any of like the good characters, the characters that you're following kind of thing and rooting for. I think they were all how should I say, like you care about them enough, even though not all of them get a lot of screen time or a lot of depth to their characters. You still care about them enough to want them to live, kind of thing. So I appreciated that, and for an independent film, for a low budget film, it's a really good project kind of thing. And I said it was written by the guys who did A Quiet Place. It was also directed by the same guys. So they both wrote and directed this. And what we have going on is that we have this girl named Harper. And when we're introduced to Harper, she's basically, it's suggested that she has a boyfriend because the girls that she lives with are complaining, you know, they had a pumpkin thrown at their house and then a truck drove away, and she's overhearing conversations in the other room saying like, why is she dating such a psychopath, and oh my gosh, he's such a stalker, yada yada. And she's feeling embarrassed by this, but you can tell she has some sort of feelings for this guy, and doesn't want to leave, or she feels stuck or whatever it is. One of the roommates claims that she found a bruise on her face and saw it. And I like the roommate Bailey. She comes into the room and she basically just grabs the phone and she's like, okay, you're breaking up with this dude tonight. And she starts texting it's over for Harper, and then Harper takes the phone away from Bailey and everything. But you get suggested right away that this girl's not in a good relationship and that her boyfriend's a piece of shit, essentially. But all the girls are going out. Harper really doesn't feel like it, but she ends up going out anyway. Doesn't have a costume or anything. They go to this club. We're introduced to this guy named Nate, and it's a really funny scene. When he's waving a bartender over, and then Harper is like, me, kind of thing, and she crawls right under the table to go meet this guy because she saw this guy talking to Bailey, and then she saw him go like this, so she thought he was talking to her, but he wasn't. So it turns into this really awkward situation, which would be awkward for anybody. I've been in those situations where I think somebody's waving at me, so I wave back, but then the person just passes me by, and I'm like, wow, I'm a fucking idiot. But this is kind of like a step above, because she actually goes up and she's like, hey. And that guy's like, hi. And it would be an awkward situation, and that's what makes it funny. But he's cool about it, and they get along. And we're introduced to this guy also named Evan, who Evan ends up being the hothead of the movie. And we're introduced to him by him smacking a fucking drink off a game, like a pinball machine kind of thing, and the whole drink splatters all over Hooper, and he's just yelling about some nonsense. But we think this is going to be like a bully character, but it ends up he's part of the whole gang, so that's him, and he's a hothead throughout the film, but he's one of those hotheads that you can't really take seriously either. It's I don't know. There's something about his character that he looks more like a goofball. So every time he starts acting tough and getting into people's faces, like I couldn't buy it almost. As threatening as he like wanted to be, and as threatening as he came across, there's just something about his character that seems more comedy or comic relief kind of thing rather than an actual, you know, strong ass bully who can be intimidating kind of thing. but he was fine. I don't know how much like he added to the story compared to everybody else, but he was fine. No complaints there. So outside, there's this alley scene, and for some reason, Harper ends up in the alley, and then Nate comes out of the club, and they have this like, they're really getting along. They have this kind of like flirty vibe going on. She said she didn't have a costume, and at one point he like, yeah, you can totally have a costume. He takes her hood and just puts it over her head, and she's like, see, you're Little Red Riding Hood now, and she's all smiles and stuff. I love how things happen like this, like in the movies. Everything's so Hallmark. Usually, in my experience of going to like parties and clubs like that, they're usually a lot more messy, and everybody's like slurring their words and screaming over each other and hey and all that shit. Like you don't usually don't get, the perfect moment where you meet the perfect girl, and then right at that moment all the music is like quiet and you're able to talk to each other without screaming, and you're like totally getting along, and the vibe is just perfect, and the temperature is just right, and the moonlight is perfect, and everything is just so perfect and sweet. Those moments are rarities in real life outside of the movies, so when they happen, here's some advice: take fucking advantage of them. When you get a girl as hot as Harper and everything's just working out perfectly, don't let that moment go. But for the sake of cinema, they end up like in the perfect moments to kind of like flirt with each other and get along. Unfortunately, they do end up being the final guy and final girl, but they don't end up going any further than that because of all the chaos that happens afterwards. So after the club, the whole group. So we have Harper and Nate. We have Bailey, two other roommates, female roommates, Mallory and Angela, and then we have the hothead Evan. So those six end up. They find out there's this haunt somewhere, and they go seek it out, kind of thing. There's this truck following them. Harper has pretty much full blown paranoia through the whole film. She's afraid of her boyfriend, whose name is Sam, hunting her down because of the whole pumpkin thing at the beginning, and he's that stalkerish kind of guy. So she's always looking over her shoulder, even in the haunt. Like when they get to the haunt, she always thinks like Sam could possibly be like behind one of the masks of the people, or like organizing the whole thing, because she always has that paranoia on in the back of her head. So they get there, and it's basically a warehouse. This place looks sketch as fuck. I don't know why they decided as soon as they saw this place to continue on going in there. There's just like one clown outside of this huge gate, and he starts doing these like hand tricks, and he's like the empty hand, and then he opens the other, and it's also empty. And then he takes a key, like a magic trick, out of Bailey's like behind her ear, and then Bailey just goes unlocks this box by the door as if she knows what to do with the key, just all of a sudden out of nowhere. And in the box is waivers, so they sign the waivers, and then they go into this seemingly abandoned warehouse where there's nothing else. So I'm guessing they knew that they were getting themselves into an extreme haunt, like an actual extreme haunt. If you read about extreme haunts, like, they exist and they're fucking nuts. But I guess that's what they thought they were getting into, and then they go in there, and it's real. It's real kills. The way they design everything to be like room to room, I liked the way they did it. It starts off where this girl is like, she has these like masquerade goggles, not goggles, but a mask on, like where it's just around your eyes, and she's screaming bloody murder. And then there's this villain with this spike, and he's like holding it over her head, and then he finally like pierces her head with it, and they think she's an actress. And all these movies have that trope where there's like, oh, everybody thinks the people dying are acting because it's all part of the show, kind of thing. So they're kind of staring, and they don't know what's going on. It's like, this looks real, man. Like, what's going on? And then the person's screaming bloody murder and actually being murdered. See, that could happen, and that probably would, and that's what's scary about haunted houses and these kind of situations in these films. It's like, how do you know if the person's acting or not? Because you would think it's part of the show. But I would assume that if a victim is being like about to be killed, and they're not an actress, I figured the first thing that they're gonna shout out is, "I'm not an actor, I'm not an actress, I'm not an actress, this guy's fucking psycho," or something like that. Like, I think that would be your safe word is, "I'm not an actor. I'm not an actor, help me, I'm not acting, this is not pretend," kind of thing. Of course, the killer would probably slit my throat as soon as I said that, but I think that would be the best way to have somebody help you in that situation is make it clear, "I'm not an actor," kind of thing. And I think that's what would happen in real life, and I think that's what I would do. But I don't know. I've never been in the situation, so. But what I'm saying is they play that trope off a lot in these films, and so there's a room where they have to put their hands through these holes, and it's called guess the body parts. So one of them is brains. The one that Nate puts his hand through, he ends up getting a grape, so he's pretty tame on that one. And then Bailey puts her hand through, and Nate starts fucking with her by pretending to scream, and is like, "Ah!" And then he's like, "Oh, I'm just kidding." But then Bailey starts to scream, and she's actually being held. So they pull her out, and then she has this slit on her wrist by whoever was behind that wall or whatever. And it's pretty bad CGI. And these are moments in the film where, and there's certain ones here and there, kind of scattered, where the CGI is just terrible, and I don't know why they didn't stick with practical effects, because they do phenomenal practical effects. But then there's scenes here and there where they resort to CGI, and I don't know why, because it just looks so cheap. I mean, it's just stick with the practical. It probably would be the same price. It's just the CGI just does not work where they put the CGI. That's one of them, is the slit on the wrist. It's complete CGI, and it just doesn't look good. But she starts bleeding out pretty heavy for the size of the cut on her wrist, so that was kind of strange. I like one scene that happens just a little bit before this. There's a coffin room, and to get to the other room, the characters have to go into the coffin and shut the coffin door, so that the wall, or the other side of the coffin, opens up, and then they go to the other room. So they have to be in basically claustrophobia for like 5 to 10 seconds, and Harper is claustrophobic. But by the time Mallory goes into her coffin, she closes the door, and for whatever reason, the door on the opposite side of the coffin doesn't open, and she's just stuck in there. She's like, "Guys," she's like, "get me out," and I'm claustrophobic, so I would like be freaking out at this point. But there's this little hole that opens up at the top, and she's staring at it, so obviously she has some air, so she starts to calm down a little bit, but she's deathly afraid of spiders, and these spiders start to crawl in, and they end up being fake, but she starts freaking out because they just start dumping these spiders in, and eventually she gets out of the coffin, but she's basically like stuck in this coffin being filled with spiders for a brief amount of time, and she just starts freaking the fuck out for, good reason, kind of thing. There's this slide scene where they go, Harper and Evan go down this slide, and that's also freaky too, because I've always had this fear of slides where if I enter the slide, I'll get to a spot of the slide where like my legs will hit like a wall, and then I'll just be stuck in this tube. I've always had that fear, and that's exactly the fear that I would have in this situation if I had to go down the slide. I would just be afraid that in the middle of the slide, or 3/4 of the way down or whatever, there'd just be a wall, and then I'd be stuck in this fucking tube and couldn't crawl back out, and it would just be an absolute nightmare. But that's the one fear that I would worry about, specifically when it comes to this slide. The villains are awesome. Like, there's this point in the movie where I call him the friendly ghost, because he has a ghost face and he has a white sheet on him, and he's a ghost essentially, but he's helping the people out, and the main characters, and he's being friendly. Like, he has this friendly, normal person voice, and he's like, "You guys need help," kind of thing, and he starts to help the characters out, and the characters want to go back the way they came, but he keeps suggesting that they're like 3/4 of the way done, so he suggests that they go forward, but he never takes his mask off. And this is one point where Evan starts to get aggressive on this guy. He's like, "Take off your fucking mask, what's your fucking name," kind of thing. And he just doesn't take off his mask, and he says his name is Mitch, I think. And for the majority of the time, he's helping the characters out, and he takes Evan out of the haunt first, and Evan and the ghost character, the friendly ghost, is waiting for the rest of the characters to come out. And then at one point, Evan wanted the ghost to take his mask off, so he's outside, and this is where he starts to get creepy. And he's like, "You still want to see my face?" And the guy, Evan's just like, "I just want to go home, dude." And he's like, "But I thought you wanted to see my face." And then he mentions Evan's address, so he knows his address. It's like 2272 Lincoln or whatever. And he's like, "You said you wanted to see my face." And then it cuts to the next scene, and you just see Evan on the floor, and he's being like hammered, like his face is being hammered in pretty much, and you see the what was underneath the ghost's face, and you have this guy with like a missing nose. He's got like greasy ass, like bald up here but long ass hair, and he just looks like his face has been mutilated kind of thing. And all the villains are like that. Like they wear these creepy ass masks, creepy ass masks, and when they take them off, their faces are all fucking mutilated because apparently it's said that these villain characters are tattoo artists, and one dresses like a devil, and when he takes the devil mask off, he's got like horns, like face modifications kind of thing, where he has actual horns coming out of his face, and he's got this creepy like lipstick and like big mouth kind of thing. Looks fantastic. Like these villains look villainous and vicious and really really legit psycho, and they play legit psycho. There's this clown character. He looks great. The way everybody's dressed up. There's this witch character who doesn't show up a whole lot. She gets killed off quickly too, but they don't do much with her. I found as much as the other three. That's the friendly ghost dude. That's the devil dude, and then that's the clown. And I really like the villains, and I really like the kills. When that guy with the missing nose, the friendly ghost, was done with Evan, he takes this, I don't know what it is, but he puts something in Evan's mouth, and he just rips Evan's face off from the top of his jaw upwards, and you just see his upper jaw and his face peeling off, and practical effects. It looked great. It looks great. I love that part. I love that kind of shit. And because they had that kind of shit in this movie, I don't know why they sprinkle in those CGI scenes that just don't work, but it is what it is, I guess. Harper at one point ends up in this escape room style room where she has to find her way out using like clues and everything. It's so dumb how on the wall there'll be writing written backwards, so you have to read it backwards. And Harper needs a mirror, like a hand mirror, to turn around and look in the mirror and read everything. I'm like, why? I could read that easily. Like, what do you need a mirror for? It's a weird directing choice. I don't know why they had her read it, like put the mirror so the audience can see it frontwards, because I'm pretty sure anybody could easily read what everything says reading it backwards. It's not that hard. Like the sentences aren't complicated. So you'll have like find this thing kind of thing, which is pretty easy to read backwards. Find this thing, but apparently Harper needs a mirror. I don't know. There's also a side plot involving Harper and her family. Her dad was abusive to her mom, and she has this like PTSD from when she was a child. She'd hide under her bed, and this plays out into the movie when the devil comes into the room, the devil character, and she's hiding under the bed, and she starts to have PTSD because memories of her father basically throwing her mother on the floor come back to her, and the wedding ring sliding under the bed, and her father coming into her room and saying, sometimes adults do stupid things kind of thing. So she has this very, very traumatic, very abusive household memory kind of thing going on. And that's the part of the film that I was kind of like, meh, it's fine, but the movie would also be exactly the same without it. Because it's just a dramatic plot point that they threw in to, I guess, put more depth into the film, but it's kind of unneeded in a film where we're following, slasher villains that are hacking people to pieces. And I guess some people want depth, some people want story, but I don't know. It felt a little bit out of place, and it might also be because they didn't explore it a whole heck of a lot. We got the gist of it, but she didn't like grow as a character because of that history. I guess maybe it made her stronger because she took down the devil character really fast. And there's a lot of times where Harper for a tiny ass girl takes off defeats her or defends herself against these villains really well. Like there's this chainsaw dude who's very reminiscent of Leatherface, and he's coming at her with a chainsaw, and she just like grabs his hand and like holds it down, and the chainsaw like starts cutting on this like pipe kind of thing. So she holds this entire guy back and a chainsaw like it's nothing. And this girl's tiny. Like she's not that tough looking or acting. So for a final girl, for her to be able to survive like these four, well, three men and one witch, but just the chainsaw guy and the devil, because the devil's huge. The guy with the fucking face modifications kind of thing. She takes these down. She takes these guys down pretty good, and I like how she takes down the devil guy too. She stabs him right in the eye, and then he gets on top of her, and she like puts her thumb in his eye, all 28 Days Later style. And then there's this shotgun kind of death trap involving a door, and she like lifts his eye up, like piercing his eye, and then his head goes up, and then the shotgun goes off, and it blows his head off. So that was cool. At one point, they put Bailey in a skull costume, and then they tape her mouth shut so she can't really speak, and she's walking in the skull costume, and Harper takes her out thinking she's a villain, and like stabs her right in the stomach. And I didn't think it was Bailey. They did that well because Bailey disappeared for a while, but the clown guy goes up to Bailey wearing the skull, and she's like, he's like, you ready to go? So you think it's another villain, and the skull guy goes out, and then Harper just takes him down immediately, and it ends up being Bailey underneath. So she basically killed one of her best friends, which is a brutal moment to have. And there's an interesting thing, again, they do it weirdly, but there's an interesting thing that happens in this film. The boyfriend Sam that's dating Harper, the abusive guy, tracks Harper on her phone, so he finds her location and he drives down in his Ford truck, pure country guy, and goes like basically to find her location, which I don't know why people set their locations on their phones, because I don't understand why people don't fear stalkers like that, especially, exes and whoever wants to find you can with a cell phone, and they know exactly where you are. So this guy finds her, and they played it off like he was going to be the hero, which is funny and interesting because you never see that. You at the beginning, he's introduced as an abusive bad guy, and then it seemed like he was going to be the one to save everybody, because once he got there, he'd see all this going on, and because he's like hot-headed himself kind of thing, being a stalker and everything, you think that he would be the one to like ironically save Harper, even though he's causing her so much trauma, and he'd kind of like redeem himself in that sense. And it would be interesting because you know this guy to be an asshole, but by the end of the movie he saves everybody, and you're like, oh shit, he kind of redeemed himself. He kind of did, fixed a bad deed with a good deed kind of thing. And I thought that's where they were going with it. But as soon as he gets there, they kill him off real quick. Real good, too. But they kill him off real quick with the clown. He trips on this wire. He gets a fucking screw, like, right through his neck. I took that as a screw you moment. I guess maybe that's what they were going for. Maybe not, but that's how I took it. And then the clown comes along with this massive fucking hammer and just fucking swings his head right off. Like, the whole just splatter everything again. Practical effects, which is what I love. So yeah, Sam gets killed right away as soon as he enters the fucking place. Like, he doesn't save anybody. And he just dies like an asshole. Like he was introduced at the beginning of the film. An abusive dude who... See, the thing is, I guess when he tracked the location, like, this is the type of guy that was probably driving down and, like, waiting to catch his girlfriend Harper like cheating on him, or banging some other guy kind of thing. He probably would be the type of guy who would get to the warehouse, and in his mind he thinks Bailey's in the warehouse fucking some other dude, and he'd probably be like totally oblivious to like, hey, maybe Harper's in danger, or hey, maybe Harper's just, I don't know, at a haunted house, or maybe like he'd probably be so focused that Harper's cheating that he'd just ignore everything else. He'd probably see Harper with a fucking clown and be like, "Oh, is this your new boyfriend? You fucking cheating on me, you fucking hoe." He's that guy. We all know that guy. We all have heard of that guy. We've all seen that guy. But he seems like that guy. So watching the movie and thinking about the movie a little bit, he probably had no intention of like saving Harper. I'm guessing his entire drive down, he's just thinking, whose cock is Harper blowing right now? Pretty much, that would be my guess. So, but like I said, I think it would be interesting if they did a whole like redemption kind of character with him, where we know him as the asshole, but he ironically ends up saving everybody. I thought that I would think that would be neat, but they didn't go that route. They just killed him brutally. He has probably the most brutal kill in the film, next to Evans. Evans was brutal as well. There's this point where Nate uses a nail gun against the clown. I like that scene too. And at the end, close to the end, there's this clown that has a gun. And I like how they introduce guns to this. I like slashers that kind of. Sometimes guns can work in slashers. I like that. Terrifier did it very well. But this clown shoots Nate point blank, like right there, and Nate just keeps fucking walking and takes the clown down. I'm like, you just got shot point fucking blank, man. How did you end up like not even flinching and taking the clown down? I don't know. It's one of those convenient moments again, and there's a lot of convenient moments with Harper being a badass when she doesn't look like she could be. Like, no offense to her, it's just she's a small girl. She doesn't look like she could take down this Leatherface looking guy in this devil costume tattoo artist who looks like he's 7 feet tall. And then Nate again, like him, like getting shot right in the fucking chest and just keeping on trucking. So, but eventually they get to the truck. They escape. The two of them. They get in their truck, which in an earlier scene the clown was like destroying, like he was breaking all the windows of the truck. So how the truck still ran, I don't know. How they had the keys still, I don't know. But they happen to get in the truck and go to safety, and they go to the hospital, and both of them get checked into the hospital. Bailey has her reoccurring dream of her dad and her childhood issues. She wakes up in the hospital. The doctors come around telling her that she needs to sign some release papers, and she gives this like scared look. And then you see the clown character driving over to Bailey's house, or mom's house, and you see him go into the mom's house, and then there's a sticky shit on the floor, and he gets stuck there. So you know that Bailey's in the house. Like set this kind of like Bailey, or sorry, Bailey, Harper, my bad. Harper was expecting this clown to come, and she set up all these traps, and then the clown's stuck there, and he falls, and he lands on like his hands land on some nails, and then Harper has this shotgun, and she's just like ready to take off your mask, and then the movie ends. I didn't get the ending. I didn't get how she knew he was coming, and I didn't get how the release papers that she signed at the hospital gave the clown her location. Is that what they were suggesting? I didn't get it. I didn't get what they meant by the ending, or what they were going for by the ending. So it was kind of just a confusing moment, but another watch might explain it. I don't know. I didn't comprehend it, kind of thing. But maybe I'm the idiot for that one. I don't know. It just didn't. It didn't seem realistic, and it seemed a little bit convoluted for me. But it didn't ruin the movie by any means, because, like I said, this is a fun ride, and I think it's great. I gave this film a 3.5 out of 5. So, with its quirks and with its moments of like 90 to 95% of the film is like fantastic. So, really, really good Halloween watch, really good spooky season movie, and brutal kills, great characters. Harper's hot as hell, and Nate too. Like, they introduce him like a stereotypical douchebag looking guy. He's got a backwards bro cap. He looks like a frat douche. You know, he's dressed in like a baseball costume, even though it's just like a baseball shirt, and he's holding a baseball bat, and he has a backwards cap, and that's his costume. But you think he's gonna be the insufferable douche, but he's actually like a genuine down to earth dude, and he's very helpful. Like he knows how to protect people. He's there to protect everybody. He's down to earth. He's somebody you respect, even though he looks and comes across as the guy who you're just gonna hate and wait to die kind of thing. So yeah, I liked the characters and I liked the movie and I liked the writing and I liked the way it was directed for the most part. Like I said, and I love the setting. I love these haunt fest kind of films, haunted house movies that take place in those settings. I think they should make more of them. Like I'm always down for more. I'm always down for that vibe because it just fits perfect for Halloween. So that's been long enough, though. I think. That's Haunt from 2019. Go check it out. Eli Roth produced it. Like I said, you can't go wrong with a film like this if this kind of stuff is up your alley. So subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice or if you like my film reviews. I will be back with more soon, so stay tuned for those. Check out what's on the channel already. Stay tuned for what's coming. Until next review, have a good one. Take care and cheers.